nonprofits per year. Total revenue per year, money that comes in. What do you think that number is? That number is roughly $2.68 trillion as of 2020, which means it's probably around $3 trillion. If you look at this chart, you'll notice what's happening every year from 98 till today. So you may say, Pat, where are you going with this? Who cares about nonprofits? Where do they get their money from? Who gives them the money? You may be thinking it's average billionaires, rich people, regular people give them money, churches, all. That's what it is, right? Well, let's see. When you look at the numbers, according to 2023 reports from Urban Institute, government agencies contributed 29% of nonprofit revenue in 2022. Let me see it again. Government agencies, 29% in 2022. Why are government agencies putting money into nonprofits? And who is starting nonprofits like the Clinton Foundation? Are you seeing like that kind of stuff and people put money into it and then there's side favors, but you can kind of funnel the money through and kind of owe the favors, and you're really saying they're doing that? Yes, 29%. And if you go a little bit deeper, that number is around $880 billion as of 2020. Okay, so that's that part. Stay with me here. So again, it's important to know this because when you think about USAID, we think about 0.2% of the federal budget. It's only 40 to.
And specifically about USAID, let me preface anything he's about to say by giving it a general definition, actually outlining what the USAID was founded for everybody in the chat right now. USAID is an independent agency of the United States government that is primarily responsible for administering civilian foreign aid and development assistance. So now, that being said, you get a general idea what that might mean when we're conducting affairs abroad, right? Maybe building up infrastructure, funding, aid through means of food and other things, right? Just a general sense of what that might mean. Now, when we talk about DEI musicals, transgender comic books, tourism in Egypt, sex changes in LGBT activism in Guatemala, one might literally just, your head starts to spin because as we just outlined it, that has nothing to do with what the initiative is supposed to be. So when you look at things like that, specifically with the point about USAID, you have all the reason in the world to be kind of confused. Not only that, outraged as a taxpayer, because nobody signed up for this shit. So it's kind of like they went abroad with an initiative that we did approve or that we thought we were knowing about, and then they kind of just did their own thing once they got out there. We should all be outraged.
$70 billion and a smart part of the NGO boom. This is an NGO boom. Oh my God. We should start our own NGO because we get money from the U.S. government. When you think about this chart from Statista, this shows changes in the number of non-governmental organizations with consultative status with ECOSOC from 48 to 2010. In 1948, we only had 40. Then it went to 180, then 724. Now, 3382 as of 2010. If you look at this chart, it tells you it is so popular today to start an NGO. Why? If 29% of the money is coming to you and they're not really that worried what you do with the money, the level of accountability isn't that high. Oh my God, we found an incredible loophole to get money from the government, do whatever we want to do. And then when we break down the federal budget, this is what we notice. Let's continue on the wasted expenditure. You'll notice 24% goes to health insurance, 21% social security, 13% defense, 13% is interest on debt, 8% benefits for veterans and federal retirees, 7% economic security program, 5 is education, and the rest falls under transportation, natural resources, agriculture, science, medical, law enforcement, international, and all other. Over the last 20 years, fiscal years, it has had an estimated $2.7 trillion in what? Improper payment. $2.7 trillion in improper payments? Yes. What does it look like every year? This is what it looks like of improper payments. 2003, it was $35 billion in improper payments. Last year was 235.
And guys, we got almost 100 of y'all in here already. We literally are just getting the stream started, man. Happy Monday night again. Let's kick the week off on a good note. Let's make it a fire stream. Double tap that screen for your boy, or you can hit the 3 buttons in the upper right-hand corner. Right now, we're discussing Doge, some of their current findings, who their next victims might be. And, man, we all got reason to be happy about this right now. Really a lot to be optimistic about when you consider the fact that, again, a lot of us didn't know that this spending was going to some of these causes, some of these initiatives, and the money saved, and just the implications of the kickback, the economic boost that is damn near certain to come from this money being saved. Just reason to be happy, reason to be optimistic.
Improper payments 2 years ago was 281, record-breaking years, back to back to back in improper payments. And if we break that down by different areas of improper payments, under Medicare, it's $51 billion.
Oh, shout out Fox Chase, man, getting the stream started. $5. We do appreciate it, man. Let me get this man a dime to Mark code. Yes, sir. Bringing the vibes in. So he says, guess who's not celebrating President's Day? Kamala. Oh, man, that's a good one. Nah, facts, though. Somewhere at the bottom of a bottle, still wondering what went wrong in her loss, man. And we should be we all happy. We all happy. Kamala supporters are still outraged, but we all happy on this side.
Of improper payments, where did they go? We don't know. Medicaid, $50.3 billion. Federal Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, $43 billion. Improper payments. You paid for it, by the way. Earned income tax credit, $22 billion. Paycheck protection programs, loan forgiveness, another $19 billion improper payments. And all of the programs, another $50 billion in improper payments. So this continues. Then we hear these stories of the Pentagon, okay? Pentagon racks up $35 trillion in accounting changes in 1 year, and they cannot account for 63% of $4 trillion of assets. DOD regularly buys parts and equipment it does not.
That's insane. What's the justification or the reasoning behind them not being able to account for these assets? That's an astronomical number, like a number like some of us can't even really fathom. Like we can't even really quite grasp how much money that is. And they're just commonly saying, this isn't the first time they've been quoted saying this as well. They're just commonly admitting to the fact that they can account for these funds. We don't know where we put them. We can't tell you where these funds have been appropriated to. Like, that's insane. That is insane. And that's when the conspiracy theorists we get to really go crazy now, because we could say, oh, okay, y'all are funneling the money, y'all are funding this industry, black markets, politicians are getting money under the table. We go crazy. That's when we're allowed to go crazy, because they say crazy-ish like this, and they don't know where $6 trillion in assets are.
Not need, because it can't keep track of parts and equipment. It already
what?
So they've already bought so many different things. They don't even know who's taking care. Like, we have a lot of equipment, right? Imagine somebody has to sit there and write down all the cameras we have, the lenses we have, the equipment we have. They're not even keeping track of it. So they keep buying stuff. They don't even know what they have in their inventory. Think about how crazy that is. Again, you and I.
And again, I mean, he makes a good point there. Even if it's going towards legitimate things, like even if they're going towards things that actually help America, we should still be able to account for these assets and where these funds have been appropriated and spent. And to be able to just say, and again, this isn't the first time they've admitted to it, to be able to just say, like, nah, I ain't gonna lie, we don't know where all this money has been spent on. It's insane.
Are paying for it. The Pentagon has failed. Pentagon started doing audits 7 years ago. They have never once passed one. And even in April of 2023, Jon Stewart is interviewing a lady on C-SPAN. I think it is C-SPAN. Maybe it is C-SPAN. You got to see it. Saying, hey, how is it that you guys are failing audits? And she says, well, what you don't know is there's a big difference between, first of all, instead of me acting it out, because you may think we're exaggerating, I just want you to watch this clip with Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart cannot believe what this lady is saying. Watch this clip for yourself.
A lot of waste, fraud, and abuse within a system.
Audits and waste, fraud, and abuse are not the same thing. So let's decompose
then
these.
Please educate me on
sure. So an audit is exactly what you just described,
yes.
Which is, do I know what was delivered to which place?
Right.
The ability to pass an audit, or the fact that the DoD has not passed an audit, is not suggestive of waste, fraud, and abuse. That is complete.
All right, and another shout out to Fox Chase, man. When Cash is sworn in, the investigations begin. Yeah, facts though. And I am, again, another reason to be optimistic. I'm optimistic to see what he finds. And again, I want to see how far I want to see how far he can go, because as we've seen with Doge, they've kind of tried to slow down their progress and some of their momentum with some of the federal halts by judges and some of these other politicians coming out and questioning their motives and stuff like that. So I want to see how far Kash Patel is allowed to go. You know, I'm hoping he can go all the way directly to the source, drain the swamp, as we all want to see. But as we kind of see with Elon and his initiative, they're doing everything they can to kind of drag their feet on some of this stuff.
Completely false right there. So
what is
now
it
it's a question of, it's suggestive that we don't have an accurate inventory that we can pull up of what we have where. That is not the same as saying we can't do that because waste, fraud, and abuse has occurred.
So in my world,
yeah,
that's waste.
How is that waste?
If I give you $1 billion and you can't tell me what happened to it, that to me is wasteful. That means you are not responsible. But if you can't tell me where it went, then what am I supposed to?
And he's saying 1 billion, not 6 trillion, but 1 billion. I mean, in any entrepreneur, anybody beyond entrepreneurship, if you have any knowledge of money, a simple knowledge of money, simple knowledge of math, you should be able to assess that if $1 billion, if we can't assess where $1 billion has been spent, where those funds have been appropriated, how they've been spent, and what we've got to gain from it, then yeah, that's mismanaged funds. That's an L. That's no good, no bueno. That's something we should all be alerted about.
To think, and when there has been reporting, I mean, this is not, look, I'm not saying this is on you and that you caused this, but I think it's a tough argument to make that an $850 billion budget to an organization that can't pass an audit and tell you where that money went. Like, I think most people would consider that somewhere in the realm of waste, fraud, or abuse, because they would wonder why that money isn't well accounted for. And especially when they see food insecurity on military bases, and they see.
You want to talk about that? Because that's a good. We should be talking. I mean, well, I'm trying to understand where you're trying to go, other than the dollars, which really bother you.
I think it doesn't really bother me. I think it's all connected.
Okay.
I think
tell me that story.
By the way, you hired them. We hired them. And that's what they're doing with our money. You know what? What are we supposed to do? I have weekly meetings. Where did this money go here? What do you mean? Where did this money go to here? I need a report on this. Well, here's where it went. Okay, great. No, we're such a big organization, all this stuff. You know what it leads to? When I was in the Army and I was a Hummer mechanic, I would ask my sergeant, my motor pool sergeant Braxton, if you remember him, send this to him. I'd say, Sergeant Braxton, this part we just paid $2,000 for on the Humvee. We can buy this elsewhere for $150. Why are we paying $2,000? And he would say the government always overpays for products. Ready? $4,000 you and I spend soap dispensers on Air Force planes. $4,000. Boeing overcharged Air Force for soap dispensers by nearly 8,000%, charging more than 80 times the commercial price. Don't worry about it. Approve it. $4,000. Let me continue. Boeing overcharging Air Force. The Department of Defense Inspector General found that Boeing overcharged the Air Force by nearly $1 million on various products for the C-17 military transport aircraft. Raytheon, the Department of Justice, announced that Raytheon will pay nearly $1 billion to resolve an investigation exposing the company for overcharging on government contract. $1 billion. Finally, they're catching it. In the 1980s.
I mean, because, yeah, you got to think about it. They essentially got the blank check with these defense contractors. I mean, we need these weapons, right, for national security and our interest abroad. Like, these weapons are vital, essential, non-negotiable. So yeah, they kind of have the leverage. The defense contractors kind of have the leverage when it comes to what they charge and how frequently they charge. If they want to overcharge, it is kind of funny that they had that lawsuit, but we kind of roped in. They kind of had us in a roped in position as the government, and ultimately, who's paying for that?
80s. You know how much you were spending on toilet seats in 1980? $640 for toilet seats. This better be Maradona's golden toilet seat that we're talking about. But no, it wasn't gold. $7,600 for a coffee maker that the Air Force spent, designed for certain aircraft. Disappearing $21 trillion from 1998 to 2015 and unsupported accounting adjustments were found in the Department of Defense.
This seems like there's like a culture of overcharging the government because you know they're gonna pay. Like Raytheon, Boeing, even beyond that, like some of these contractors, these government contractors seem to have made it almost like commonplace to overcharge the government, knowing that they're gonna get that money. But ultimately, who's footing the bill? Like that's what I think a lot of people fail to understand is, as a citizen, we foot the bill for all this shit.
Books far exceeding the entire annual U.S. GDP. Let me say that one more time so you don't think I made a mistake. $21 trillion between 98 and 2015. 17 years, $21 trillion. The $2 billion zombie program. Pentagon continued to fund a $2 billion satellite program for years after it had already been canceled. It's been canceled, but they keep spending $2 billion. $1,280 paper clips, not made out of gold, not made out of platinum, regular paper clips. You and I are paying $1,280 for it. This is again the Pentagon. The F-35 fighter jet fiasco cost over $1.7 trillion, making it the most expensive weapon system ever. What the hell do you need to spend $1.7 trillion? Despite this, the aircraft has been plagued with issues from software bugs to parts shortages. The invisible buildings, the Pentagon spent millions on constructing buildings in Afghanistan that were never used or were built in areas where they served no purpose. $300,000 camouflage that didn't work. Pentagon paid the NFL for patriotism $6.8 million. At least this is a little bit of, hey, sell their dream about what it is to be a soldier here. Sell us how awesome the country is. I get that part, $6.8 million, but
you could tell there's major endorsement from the military to the NFL. It's like they promote it pretty heavily. So, I mean, I guess that investment they kind of got their return on that one because, I mean, the military is they champion the military in the NFL, which I can respect for sure.
I don't get all.
Which is why, like, that was so controversial when people were kneeling for the national anthem, but that's a whole nother topic.
All the other stuff that we're talking about here. And by the way, when you talk about this stuff, the Beltway bandits, you know what we found? You ever heard of Booz Allen Hamilton? And you hear about, did you know that Snowden, I don't know which one of these names used to work at Booz Allen Hamilton. Did you know John McAfee, I think, worked at Booz Allen Hamilton? Like if you worked at this consulting firm, it's amazing, right? Do you know out of their revenue every year, say they do 10 billion a year, you know what percentage of their revenue comes from the government? Contracts, you ready? Not 5%, not 10%, not 20%, 97% is all coming from the U.S. government. That means Booz Allen Hamilton, without the government contracts, they rely on the government. You ever heard of?
Man, when a government contract makes you rich, when you got rich off of a federal government contract, so you had that guaranteed federal money, like guaranteed taxpayer, funding your business, driving your business forward. Them are a hack. But a lot of people and a lot of entities have been taking advantage of that for a very long time. And I think that Elon's initiative with Doge is going to expose that this has been commonplace. A lot of politicians have benefited as well. But a lot of these government contractors and beyond have siphoned money from our government, more or less.
Lockheed Martin, what percentage do you think is coming from government contracts? 99%. Raytheon did a little bit better. They're at 48% in 2022. And in 2024, they were 53.3%, which means they have some business they're doing outside of the government. All right, next one is Medicare and Medicaid, which is 25%. If you look at this chart from 1970.
I mean, yeah, because the government isn't the only one that needs weapons.
Till today, we went from $7.5 billion to now $1 trillion, and it's just grown exponentially. And by the way, to simplify the whole thing, Medicare is for old people, like my dad. Medicaid is for poor people. But if you look at Medicaid and Medicare, guess what you notice? Both of them are climbing. The charts are right next to each other. I'm sure you see this, but let's see if they got anything going on here. So this is why Doge is on fire. This is why so many people are excited to see what Doge is going to be doing. And Doge Aid search Medicare agency payment system for fraud. And while they're doing this, a judge is like, wait a minute, we're not going to give you access to any of this stuff so you can see what fraud we're doing or wasted expenditure we have. Judge named Engelmeyer is like, no, I'm not going to let you go through. But unfortunately, there's nothing he can do about it. They're going to get access to this stuff. eventually. You want to find out what kind of wasted expenditure we've had with Medicaid and Medicare in the past? Let me give it to you. $1.3 billion healthcare fraud scheme in 20.
Oh, and shout out Fox Chase. I did miss his super chat. $5. Would you play the tribute video I put in Discord music for President's Day? Yeah, no problem, bro. I'll get right on that. Shout out Dons, man. And guys, we do appreciate the super chats. Super chats do drive the show forward. So guys, go ahead and super chat into the show. 47 super chats away from opening that call-in line. It's always a good time to get the supporters up here, talk to them live. 47 more super chats to open that part of the show up. You could double tap the screen, hit the 3 buttons in the upper right-hand corner to like the video and push the video in the algorithm. We do appreciate the support. Let's keep it going.
2016, Philip S. Forms, owner of more than 20 assisted living facilities, was involved in a scheme that resulted in $1.3 billion in fraudulent claims in Medicare and Medicaid. He was convicted in 2019 for paying and receiving kickbacks and bribes, making him one of the largest healthcare frauds in U.S. history. Another $900 million chemotherapy fraud in 2013. Another $450 million kickback and price fixing settlement in 2024. Another $68 million Medicaid home care fraud in 2024. This was a 2 Brooklyn-based adult daycare business defrauded New Yorkers. Medicaid home care program of $68 million. Another $13 million pharmacy fraud scam. Another $20 million genetic. Another $45 million. You know why? Because it's easy to do so. But where's the accountability? Because if you make it easy, like, hey, we're going to give PPP, we're going to give these loans, and every noble person is going to take it. No one's going to cheat the government and take money that they don't deserve. A lot of people did. A lot of people did. Why? Because they made it easy for people to come out and say, I'm going to take that money, and that's what they did. So now, Social Security, 21%. When you think about 21% that goes to Social Security, what do you think about? You think about, well, Social Security, this is for the money that's paid for folks that are maybe boomers, retired. That's who we're talking about, right? Not necessarily. If you think about Social Security spending, look where it's at from 40 till today. A story came out, 85% of people don't want to touch Social Security and do anything to it. They're frightened of it. You know why? Because we've been relying on this.
And to that point about PPP is really actually sad, because you have people who were siphoning money through that PPP assistance program that didn't really need it, who were fraudulently applying for it, to the point where there were people who legitimately needed the money from PPP, and by the time they applied, the funds were dried up. Their business went under because they couldn't get that money. They couldn't get that assistance. So, I mean, that's the harsh reality of some of these people, some of this negligent spending, or some of these people that take advantage of some of this, these government stipends and these contracts, and beyond that, just any type of government money. That's just kind of the harsh negative reality is when somebody's abusing it, it's actually taking from the hands and the mouths of somebody that's probably needing it.
And if you look at the bottom chart, you'll notice one thing here. Of the expenditure that we have, the spending, the blue is what actually goes to the old folks that are retiring.
You need Social Security. Like, our parents are going to have to retire on Social Security. Some of us, you know what I'm saying? I know we got some followers, some of us are 10, 15, 20 years away from wanting to access those funds from Social Security. I'd be goddamned if any of our supporters or my family or my older friends needed Social Security or needed to access those funds and they weren't available because of some negligent ass spending that had been unchecked in our government. Now, when our senior citizens or our older citizens need these funds, they're inaccessible. I'd be damned. I'd be outraged.
And what I'm about to tell you right now, folks, you've read this when you get your Social Security letter that comes out every year. This thing's going to run out here very soon. Well, guess what? We're only a few years away. Social Security Board of Trustees projects that the OASI trust fund will become insolvent in 2033, only 8 years away. Upon insolvency, the program would only be able to pay approximately 77% of scheduled benefits, leading to a potential 23% in reduction benefits for recipients. This is going to be one of the biggest topic of discussion in 2032 election. You're going to have one side that's going to say, this is why we got to raise taxes to take care of, so you got to break the back of all the younger generation, whatever we got to do. It's kind of where we're going. It's coming. Stay tuned. You'll hear somebody talk like that. And you're going to say, what the hell is this candidate talking about? Coming to an election near you. So that's Social Security. The Medicare Board of Trustees estimates that the health insurance trust fund will be depleted by 2036. At that point, Medicare would...
Oh, and shout out Zoloff, $2. Daily troll reminder, 29 days down, 1,489 to go. Now, facts. 1 month in, by the way, 1 month in Trump's presidency, and we've seen a lot to digest, break down, and analyze. You know, some of us are happy, some of us are skeptical, some of us are still outraged from the loss. But 1 month later, and we continue on. Either way it goes, we continue on, and he's our guy.
Would only be able to cover 89% of its costs. You know how many different things I can read here? I have stacks. I'm not going to go through all of them. Let me just read one of them here. The GAO estimates that about 1,500 of those individuals, up to 7,000 federal employees that have disability, may have improperly received benefits since their wages went beyond maximum income threshold. And when they did the investigation, they also found over 71,000 stimulus checks were sent by the Obama administration to people who were dead, including 63,481 people whose deaths have been previously reported to the agency. They knew they're dead, but we're still sending.
That's like Elon joked about that one press conference that him and Trump had in the Oval Office, that there was somebody, just one of the cases that he had found when he was searching through some of these documents. One of the people that were applying for Social Security was 130 years old. He joked and said, like, man, they need to be in Guinness Book of World Records. They're so goddamn old. So it just goes to show that, like, some of these agencies really aren't doing their due diligence when they are processing who they're sending this money out to. And that just it just continues and builds up to just a pattern of just negligent spending, like, and not being able to account for where this money is going. And this is where you have Doge come in and just point it out. And we're all just like, oh my gosh, but it's become commonplace, and it's been unchecked for so long, and it builds up to this point.
Them payments. Very organized system. I visualize they're sitting in the office, and this is how they're measuring it. Hey, is Mary Jackson alive? Honestly, I don't know. I've got a stack of papers over here. I think she's alive. Okay, cool. Send the check, Johnny. Send him the check. Okay, cool. I visualize it being like that instead of system feeding all that stuff. How do you handle all of this in the way that they do? But by the way, continues with all the fraud, the Eric Secon scandal, $550 million in improper payments. This guy's going to jail for 27 years. Another one here, $550 million in federal disability payments. Another one with 106 individuals, including former police officers and firefighters in 2014. Massive disability fraud. I can go through a ton of stories here with this. We'll set that aside. Now let's go to education, 5%. This is a chart that many parents are not going to like, but you need to see. Let me tell you what this chart is, okay? Look at that box that tells you everything about what it stands for. The dotted lines is staff per student. The blue is spending. The orange is your reading scores of our kids. Green is math scores. Purple is science scores. What do the scores look like from 1970 till today? Flat. Nothing has changed. What does it look like for staff per student? Skyrocketed. What does it look like for spending? To the roof. How much have things improved? It's so bad that Bill Maher, who said, I agree with almost everything that Rahm Emanuel says, except for this. Watch the clip.
Proper payment.
What about the Department of Education? Now, I don't know that much about it, but I've never read good things. Rahm Emanuel, who I agree with on almost everything, here was a quote. He said, a third of eighth graders can't read, and now he wants to close the department. And I thought, that's probably why they can't read, or at least partly. I mean, the numbers keep getting worse and worse and worse. And I don't know if the Department of Education is anything but, I mean, it doesn't really, I don't know what it does, except take money. It's sort of a middleman. It doesn't like run classrooms or do stuff like that. I don't think it makes policy. So where are you on something like that?
And that's Bill Maher saying it, who thinks Newsom is a great candidate for a future president. So Bill Maher on the left is starting to realize our education sucks. And
sensibility has re-entered the minds of some of the people on the left. It took about a month, but we're starting to hear reason come back into the chat. And shout out Fox Chase, $5. Acting head of Social Security just quit after having a feud with Doge about findings. And expect more of that. Expect more of that type of public outrage, public arguments from some of these bureaucrats, some of these politicians, people within our government who are acting or are spokesmen of some of these agencies. They're going to be upset. Like, bro, you're challenging everything they've worked for. You're challenging their job. their career at a certain point, because not only will they get fired, but if they were in a position of management when all this negligent spending was going on, that makes them fully culpable. Ain't no pass on none of that. We're all gonna be looking at them like, damn, so you were in your position for 10 to 15 years, and that whole time there had been all this mismanagement of funds, and you're gonna tell me you didn't know?
You what?
There's gonna be a lot of that. Expect a lot of that, which is why you see politicians and again bureaucrats like Schumer, and we can name, well, the list goes on. We can name them. You see politicians like that saying like, "Oh, who's it going to be next? It's a constitutional crisis. They shouldn't have this much power. Where's the oversight? Somebody needs to stop this." Like, they've said it all.
There's a reason for it. Where the hell is the money going, and what do they do at the Department of Education? But let me give you a new analysis we got from the Government Accountability Office. Reveals that the Department of Education underestimated the cost of the federal direct loan program by $311 billion between 1997 and 2021. That's another $311 billion. And by the way, this whole program of $311 billion, they originally estimated that this was going to make them generate over $100 billion in revenue. The program instead ended up costing you and I taxpayers $200 billion. The budgeting errors stem from flawed assumptions about borrower behavior, income growth, defaults, and the impact of new repayment program like income-driven repayments. Who voted for these guys? Who hired these guys? Right? I mean, gets you to think, what would happen if you and I had this job and we did that? How quickly would we get fired? No, stick line, you're going to be fine. Okay, so then when we look at interest on debt, 13%. When we look at our actual debt, what happened to a national debt? If you look at 1966, look at the amount we had. Nothing. And look how it's climbing. And the red is all the recessions that we've had and how long they lasted. So by the way, Elon wants all the data on what's going on. The judge is saying you're not going to get the data for the Treasury. When you look at this chart here, the one at the top that we're looking at, black is when we're breaking even. We're doing good, okay? We're doing good with our budget. Everything is looking good. Anything that goes under, that means we're overspending. So look how far goes under. The second chart shows you our expenditure. Again, look at from 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000 drops a little bit. And then look at from 2020 on, sky rocket.
And guys, we got almost 200 of y'all in here right now. Quick pause for the cause. We do appreciate the support, man. Happy Monday night for everybody who's just now getting in here. It's going to be a fire stream. Got a lot of interesting videos lined up for tonight's queue. Like the video for your boy. Go ahead and double tap the screen, or you can hit the 3 buttons in the upper right-hand corner. Super chats do drive the stream forward, guys. So we're about, I want to say, 45 super chats away from opening up that call-in line. So always a great time to get some of the supporters and some of the disagreeers up here as well. Have a good conversation on live for everybody to see. So we would love to open up that portion of the show. 45 super chats to do so. Thoughts, questions, comments, anything you want to get off your chest. Even disagreements and jokes can be shared. And we will give you a shout out for supporting and read your comment aloud. And Fox Chase, I did not forget about you, my boy.
To the top. You've seen this before. This ain't the first time I'm showing it to you. You've seen this before from others as well. And by the way, when we're looking at our national debt to GDP ratio, if you look at this chart here, just look at the highs and lows. World War I, we hit 30%. Great Depression, we hit 38.6%. World War II, we hit 103%. We went all the way back down to 35.2 in 2010. Then in 2007, then in 2009, after the mortgage crisis, we went to 52.3. You know what it is right now? Our debt to GDP ratio, 123%. It's the highest we've ever been. We've never been this high. This is a very scary situation to be in. If you and your wife were in debt the way the country is, you'd be having anxiety attacks every single night. Blood pressure would be to the roof saying, babe, what the hell are we going to do? We got to sell your Chanel purse. We got to sell the Louis. We got to sell the Coach. We got to sell the Michael Kors. I don't care what it takes. We're selling it all. Sell your socks, sell your shoes. You need one pair of running shoes, and that's it.
Yeah, that's a real recession. That's a real recession. When you got to go in that closet and pull out them luxury items that when everything was going good, when the economy was flowing, when the job was paying bonuses, you got to go in that same closet and pull those items out and go to the resale stop and see what you can get. That's a real recession. A lot of us ain't experienced that.
Kind of a situation you'd be in. So you know who's panicking today? The people who are panicking today is the folks who have been able to take advantage of the system like this with this much accountability. They're panicking.
Like when you got to go in there, say a PS5, say a Xbox, say a gaming computer. Yeah. Some of you fellas, you got a nice sneaker collection. You got to go in there and get some of those Jordans and Nikes. Then you got to go turn to your wife or girlfriend and say, yeah, let's get that Chanel, that Louis, the Michael Kors. Oh, man. Oh, man. She going to be clutching. She going to be clutching her pearls. She going to be like, no, babe. Like, are you sure? Is there anything else we can do? Oh, my God. Bro, some of y'all rise would rather go homeless than give up her nice little purse.
They're like, whoa, I thought we can fool the American people on saying we're gonna get the budget squared away, but we're not really gonna do it. We know that, right? Like they're gonna forget about it. We'll move on. Why is this guy starting this organization called DOGE, Department of Governmental Efficiency? I think that's what it's called. And they want to come and look at everything? No, he doesn't. He doesn't have that kind of time. He's a guy worth $500 billion. Why does he care about coming? Why does Trump care about this stuff? Let it go, right? Listen to a little bit of Frozen. No, we're coming to you. We're not letting it go. We want to come and find out what happened. I don't know what the numbers. I think it's 17 or 18 or 19 people are investigating Fauci to see what's going on. Accountability is here. The people want to know, what did you do with our money? Remember when that one scene where the guy says, what do you want? You know what the American people said? Accountability. We want to know what you have here. We want to know what you're doing with our money. That's all it is. If you're like that as well and you want to know as well, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel.
And why would